the spiritual truth today? Now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. Now if you just put your hand over your heart and extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with is that your word can never come back to you void. Your word can never come back to you void. Now, we want to be careful with this because it's good news and bad news for us. First, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what this phrase actually means. When we talk about our word, when we say word, the word here in church, it's churchy language. And what it means is what's on your mind. What's on your mind. So what's on your mind will never come back to you void. It's not about language. Language follows what's on your mind. But that's what the word means. And it's what's on your mind in the positive sense, because we come here and we hear that and we say a positive intention and we forget that we're following it up by all the doubt, by all the insecurity that it might not happen. See, it's what's in your mind, not just what pops out of your mouth. Your mind, what's in your mind will not come back to you void. The spiritual practice to support us in this spiritual truth today is the spiritual practice of keeping your eye on the prize. Keeping your eye just on the prize. You know, years ago when I got my dog, Rumi, I got him from an animal rescue shelter. And he had a lot of bad habits. And so I took him to training school, dog school. Or really, he took me to dog's parent school, as they say. When I got there, they said, oh, it's not for the dog, it's for you. And the first thing they wanted him to learn was to keep his gaze on me first for 3 seconds, and then for 6 seconds, and then up to a full minute. Okay? 3 seconds, 6 seconds, and up to a full minute. Well, Rumi, he couldn't keep his eye gaze on me even for 3 seconds, let alone graduating to 6 in 2 minutes. And I began to think about that. So as a way to not get mad at him, I began to think about how often do I keep my gaze strictly on my good without letting anything else interfere with it? How long can I do that? And what I realized is I need to train my mind. And that's why we're here today. That's why all of us are here today. There's no other reason, just to train your mind. I was here to train my mind to keep my gaze on my good and not let anything else jump in. It's not an easy thing to do because here's the thing. Your focus can't be fleeting. In order for your good to come to you, it can't be a fleeting focus. It has to be strictly that. And the problem is that there are all kinds of distractions that happen. So in the morning, we ask you to set your word, set your intention, get your mind straight on what you want, and we're good with it. We can do it. And then we go out of the house. And then the distractions begin to crowd in on us. There's a shiny thing over here and an irksome thing over here, and all of a sudden, our gaze is no longer on our good. It's in all of these other things in our lives. If we could learn to hold our gaze steady in our marriages and not get distracted by the toothpaste cap left off the toothpaste or whatever it is in your marriage, if we could hold our gaze steady on personal wealth for us and not let our gaze get distracted by the bill that just came in that we weren't expecting or the tire that blew that now we have to replace, if we could keep our gaze steady on our children's goodness and happiness in our life and not get distracted on some issue that they're having, if we could begin to train our mind to do that, those things just come closer to us. Well, today I'm going to work with a little parable of Jesus that many of you probably are familiar with. It's from the Sermon on the Sea. It's the parable of the wheat and the tares. Now, Jesus will tell you that there are two meanings for parables. They're the obvious meaning. Anybody can get these obvious meanings. and you'll be blessed by them. If you just stuck with the obvious meaning, you would be blessed by that meaning. There's also a more subtle meaning that Jesus said, those with ears will hear it. See, what he's doing is he's talking to different levels of our consciousness in our life. And what he says is that we can only take in what we can recognize in our conscious mind. Now that's important, so let me say it again. You can only take in what you can recognize in your conscious mind. Everything else doesn't go away, it simply goes into your subconscious. And that's a whole nother sermon. What we want to do is take what we get in our conscious mind and keep it in our conscious mind. What he's saying is stay awake. If you stay awake, I've got something to teach you here. Now, I want to talk to you specifically about that because I know there are people in this congregation this morning who grew up Christian, and you think you know the wheat and the tares. And so now you're starting your laundry list, or what, are you going to have Eggs Benedict? Are you going to have a little waffle? What are you going to have for, don't do it. Don't do it. Stay with the parable. Because every time you hear it at a deeper level because your consciousness, your awake and your aware mind is getting ready for it. Well, Jesus said, look, I'm going to toss you a ball now here. Are you ready for the ball? If you're ready for the ball, that means you're awake and you're aware. Jesus always started his parables with this, and not always, but mostly, with this. The kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like. He started that because some of us have been living in hell for so long, we can't even fathom what the kingdom of heaven is like anymore. We've forgotten about what the true kingdom of heaven is like because we're so caught up in this. He said, look, what I want to be able to do to you today is to not settle. I don't want you settling here. I want you to know what the kingdom of heaven is like. Get out of purgatory now. If you've gotten out of hell already, you get into purgatory. We want to move you all the way into hell. Some of us have been in purgatory so long, we've been in that state so long that we, in heaven, not in hell, heaven. Thank you, Donna. Somebody's listening, and that's a very, very helpful thing to me, at any rate. All right. Some of us have been in that make-do, that settle so long that we're saying things like, just let the fighting in my house stop. If you just let the fighting in my house stop. Some of us have been, just let me get through this month with my bills. That'll be okay. Some of us, if you just let my teens smile one time this week, that'll be good. See? What he's saying is that's settling, and that's not the kingdom of heaven. You won't find any of Jesus' parables starting, the kingdom of heaven is making do. It's not going to happen that way. It's much, much greater than that. See, the parable that he has, one of them, it says, the kingdom of heaven is like the householder. And what he's telling us is, it's not like the homeless person who's always struggling. It's not like the renter who can't do what they want to do and paint the walls as they want to paint. Kingdom of heaven is like the guy who owns his house and is able to do what he wants in his life. Another one is the kingdom of heaven is like a net waiting for fish. It's not for a single fishing line. It's the net waiting for lots of fish in our lives. See, the kingdom of heaven is not a description of make do. So this one of the wheat and the tares, it starts out like this. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sows good seed in his field. This is the field. The kingdom of heaven is like the man who sows good seed in his field. But while he slept, the enemy came and sow tares. When did the enemy come? When he was asleep. See, your enemy thoughts will come to you when you're unconscious, not when you're asleep at night. Well, they might come then too. But what they're really coming from is when you've fallen asleep to the truth of who you are. When you fall asleep to the truth of who you are as an abundant beings, the enemy of fear will come and steal your prosperity. When you fall asleep to the truth of who you are as a being with divine wisdom inside, your confusion will come and steal that which you have to give in terms of wisdom for your life. When that wisdom of wholeness, when you're asleep to the wisdom of wholeness, who you are, that fear called jealousy will come and steal your serenity and your harmony. It comes when we are asleep. When we stay awake, the enemy cannot come, cannot rob us. The parable goes on to say, after the enemy came and stole and planted the tares, after the enemy came and planted the tares, he went away. He went away. Don't miss this teaching. See, after you plant your good, don't be chasing an enemy that is already gone. See, if you have a boss who told you that you were not very good employee, don't take that to your next position. When the enemy is gone, let it be gone. When you have a relationship in which you no longer, you had a spouse that created an environment in which you no longer trust relationships, and you're out of that relationship now, when that's gone, let it be gone. Don't take that mistrust into your next relationship. Jesus is telling us when the enemy left in our life. Yeah, you got to deal with the consequences. Absolutely, you have to. The parable goes on to say, to announce the predictable. Spring comes, and so does the wheat, and so do the shoots of tares. The shoots of wheat and the shoots of tares. And the field hand comes up to him, and he says, "Farmer, did you plant bad seeds?" And the farmer said, "No, I didn't plant bad seeds," but it's a good question. You and I need to ask ourselves all of the time. When we see that there are tares in our lives, and tares are just weeds, when you see there are weeds in your lives, you need to ask the question, what thought did I have to put these here? How did I contribute to this in my life? And a lot of times, what the answer to that is not that we put a bad seed in there, but that we didn't put a strong seed in there. We didn't put a seed in there that was big enough for the big God that we have. For instance, I am now at the place where I am ready not only to dissolve the debt, but I am ready to receive over $1 million to pay off this church completely. Just pay it on off. Just pay it off. And I am in a place where each one of you get to set your intention for wealth and have you all be wealthy. That's my intention for this church and for all of you. But as soon as it's out of my mouth, all of my mother and all of my father and all of the people who were limited thinkers come up for a little voice. Those are the tares in my life. You have to give an intention, speak a word, put out what's in your mind big enough to let the God do that work in your life. So the man says, "No, I didn't put any bad seed in. They were good seeds." See, the problem wasn't the seeds that I put in. The problem is I went asleep. That's the problem. Well, the field hand said, "Should I go ahead and pull the seeds?" And the farmer says, "No, do not pull the weeds." Not the seeds, but the weeds. Don't pull the tares. Okay? Don't pull them. Don't pay any attention to them. Don't look at them. Don't talk to them. Don't see them. Just let them be. Just let them be there. Don't fight with them. It takes too much energy to fight with them. That is such a beautiful teaching. We could spend a month on this particular teaching, to not fight with the tares in our lives, the weeds in our lives. If we could just focus on the wheat that we're looking up and leave it behind, the tares. See, when you have a dream, you want to plan it and you want to trust. As Brenda's prayer so beautifully said this morning, there is a universal thing going on here, a universal system going on here. And that universal system knows how to provide that which you have already asked for. It knows how to do it. Just like it knows how to run the blood through you right now. You're running blood through you right now. You're not doing anything to do that. The universal system set that in place. It knows how to fulfill and grow the wheat in your life. See, here's what happens. We misunderstand this a lot. And what happens is we begin to fight with our fears. You know, you come to a metaphysical church like this very often and very long, and sometimes you don't catch the teaching exactly right. So you get a diagnosis of cancer, and all of a sudden, now you're blaming yourself for having a bad thought that might have caused that. Or you getting through a divorce, and you start blaming yourself for, that's not the teaching. There's no blame and there's no shame in this teaching. Our work is to not even worry about what caused it, but to put in place another thought, another seed, the seed of healing, the seed of wholeness. Well, we know that what we resist persists. And so our work is to simply, as Ernest Holmes says, not only ignore it, but lovingly ignore it. Lovingly ignore it. Let it go. Well, the farmer tells the field hand, look, don't even worry about it, because here's what we're going to do. At the harvest, I'm going to have the gatherer pick it all up, and the gatherer will separate the wheat from the tares and will burn the tares. Such a powerful teaching. See, at our harvest, at the harvest of our dream, if we've let it alone and we've let the wheat come up, if we've let our dream become manifest in our lives, then that's the time to let the tares go. There are people in this room right now who are sober from a number of different addictions. And as one who is that person, I can tell you it is much easier for me to imagine living life without a drink after the harvest of my recovery than it is before my recovery. There are people who, understand they've learned the laws of prosperity, they've worked with the laws of prosperity, and once they're harvesting their prosperity, it is so much easier to let go, to completely let go of all of the tares. It's effortless once we are in the harvest of our dream. So our work right now is to begin to let go of the weeks and tares. Let the universal gatherer, that who is the universal gatherer, begin to do the separation in our lives. Find the part of your job that you do like. Everybody has, I have the best job in the whole entire world. I love this job. And I'm telling you, there are some tares in this job. There are some tares in this job. My work is to find what I love about this job. And that's my focus. Find what you love about your partner and focus on that, not on what is not working in your life. Well, there's a guy, I love to read this story about once a year. I read it usually in the summer. I love this story because it's a guy who had a lot of people who were like the tares in his life, running around, but he didn't get into it. Probably no one person has stirred my imagination over the years more than Walt Jones of Tacoma, Washington. Walt outlived his third wife, to whom he was married for 52 years. When she died, someone said to Walt, "It must be sad losing such a long-time friend." His response was, "Well, of course it was, but then again, it might have been for the best." Well, why was that? Well, I don't want to be negative or say anything to defame her wonderful character, but she kind of petered out on me at the last decade. So when asked to explain, he went on to add, "She just never wanted to do nothing. She just kind of became a stick in the mud. 10 years ago, when I was 94, I told my wife, we ain't never seen nothing except the beautiful Pacific Northwest. She asked me what was on my mind, and I told her I was thinking about buying a motorhome, and maybe we could visit all 48 of the contiguous states. What do you think of that? He said. She said, I think you're out of your mind, Walt. Why do you say that? We'd get mugged out here, we'd die, and there wouldn't be a funeral parlor. Then she asked me, who's going to die, Walter? Drive, Walter. He said, I am, Lammy. You'll kill us, she said. I'd like to make footprints in the sands of time before I check out, but you can't make footprints in the sand of time if you're sitting on your butt, unless your intent is to make butt prints in the sand of time. Now that she's gone, Walt, what do you intend to do? What do I intend to do? I buried the old gal and bought me a motorhome. This is 1976, and I intend to visit all 48 of the states to celebrate our bicentennial. Walt? Yeah. Who is that woman sitting by your side who's your new lady friend, Walt? To which he replied, yes, she is. Yes, she is what? My lady friend. Lady friend? Walt, you've been married 3 times. You're 104 years of age. The woman must be 4 decades younger than you. Well, he responded, I quickly discovered that man cannot live in a motorhome alone. I can understand that, Walt. You probably miss having someone to talk to after having a companion all those years. Without hesitation, Walt replied, you know, I miss that too. Too? Are you inferring you have a romantic interest? I just might. Walt? What? There comes a time in a person's life when you knock that stuff off. Sex, he replied. Yes. Why? Well, because that kind of physical exertion could be hazardous to a person's health. Walt considered the question and said, well, if she dies, she dies. So remember Walt. Remember Walt. No dream too foolish. All right. Let's take this message into prayer. Knowing that there is only one power. It's the power of love, and it flows through every single one of us. There's only one God. And that God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and filled with love. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.